We're finally going to try to finish our talk on cattle mutilations, missing persons, and abductions. Fred, I think this is how many times have we tried this?
About six.
Every episode for the last 6, we started this and never got through it. But before we do that,
we'll never get through it again.
we probably won't, but we're going to do it first now, so I know we're going to get through it. So why don't we just ask you, you don't have to tell us where you work, but tell us the field you're in, how long you've been with MUFON.
Been with MUFON for about 5-6 years. My name's Bob Behanna. I'm the state section director for MUFON. And, you know, just having cases and investigating UFOs, as well as being brought on with a team of people to investigate alien abductions because of my background in mental health and different things.
So what do you actually do in mental health? When you say mental health, what does that mean? What do you do?
In the state of Pennsylvania, I have a license in mental health, as well as I have a certification in drug and alcohol therapy. Okay. So what I typically do is that help run an organization, but as well as seeing outpatient clients, such as people who have anxiety, depression, PTSD. And there's some similarities with abductions in correlation to PSDT, as well as you know, seeing clients who need to come in for therapy for their methadone, Suboxone to try to overcome.
Okay. And where's your area? Are you Fayette County? What's the area that you're in?
What we investigate is pretty much around the Fayette County area, but I mean, in general, we can investigate any place.
No, I mean, with MUFON, you're
MUFON.
Based out of Uniontown,
yeah,
right?
we're based out of
Basically,
Uniontown, PA, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right,
You
so
say
that's your
you're
background.
drug and alcohol?
Yes, certification.
Stay away from me.
Okay.
But we actually have 4 people that are really, I would say, highly qualified in that area.
I was a
right?
drug and alcohol counselor.
Well, that's 5 then.
Yeah.
We have Robert, and then we have Doc Medich, who's involved with the abduction team. Mike Melton in Philly involved with the abduction team. Also, Medich is over here in Beaver County, and then up in Erie we have Glenn Bailey, who's a psychologist. Right. And so we have 4 people around the state. We got Erie, we got 2 in the Pittsburgh area, and 1 in Philly covered in this field. So when we need expertise, what was that?
Melton.
Mike Melton out in Philly. So let me give a recap of some of the stuff we had talked before, and jump in with your comments. But we've gone over some of this in previous episodes, but I want to actually finish it today because we keep hitting missing and we don't get this done. Some of the characteristics, we'll start with the cattle mutilations and then go into the human abductions that take place. But with these cattle mutilations, the wounds, they're cleaned. They're surgically done and they're cleaned. They're totally drained of blood. There's no blood in the cattle. There's no blood in the area. There's no blood around the wounds. So whatever is done elsewhere. After it's drained, it's brought back. This guy by the name of George E. Onet, he's a doctor of veterinary microbiology. He says what he has noticed is that scavengers, other animals, will not go near these dead cattle, horses, whatever they are. They stay away from it. And they said domestic animals, like the ranchers will come with their dog. The dogs get really agitated and fearful and pull away. There's something going on. They know, I'm telling you, animals, especially dogs, they have this sixth sense. They know danger. It's very primal with them. So, but here's the thing though, you know how we talk about, there's different theories that they need the DNA and all of that. I looked it up. Well, how close is cattle DNA to us? They experiment on mice and rabbits, when they develop makeup and vaccines and stuff. And chimps are 96% the same as humans, DNA. So where does cattle fall in? I looked it up. It's 80%. That's not that close. 80% is really not that close to human DNA. There's other animals that are much closer. Pigs, chimps, they're much closer in their DNA. So I think that the argument saying it's the DNA, unless they don't care what the DNA is, has nothing to do with human DNA, because they're doing something else with the DNA. And we're going to get to that. But then in the FBI, in 1975, because that's when these cattle mutilations exploded, 75 to 79.
And they covered it up.
Well, but they did release this years later. They say that the eye was taken in 14% of the cases, the tongue in 33% of the cases, genitals in 74%, the rectum in half the cases. But then NIDS, National Institute of Discovery Sciences, Bigelow, right?
Bigelow.
Robert Bigelow.
Yes.
He did a study after that. I'm assuming this is now in the 80s, maybe even in the 90s.
They actually did their study when they was out at the ranch out there.
Oh, Utah?
Yeah,
Skinwalker?
They did their study with a lot of the stuff out there, and then they got involved in the other stuff. That's what really started their investigation.
That started NIDS?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
NIDS had all FBI guys, all retired
he did.
FBI and federal government people.
He had a good team.
Yeah.
So when NIDS took a look at it, they found then that the eye was taken in 59% of the cases, the tongue in 42%, genitalia in 85%, and the rectum in 76% of the cases. So, and then again, like we said, there's no blood left with this. Then you got this Dr. Howard Burgess. He says that 90% of the mutilated cattle are between 4 and 5 years old.
Right.
I don't know if that's the peak time that they would reproduce. I don't know when cattle reproduce, at a year, at 2 years, 4 or 5. But he says, he adds, there's an absence of footprints or tracks where the cattle is found. Then he references the lady case in 1967, Snippy. It's funny,
horse.
that, Snippy the horse, and then they call it Lady the horse. The newspaper, how that happened, they mixed up the two.
Right.
Snippy was, I think, the father of Lady.
Yeah.
And when they gave all the details, they didn't see that and called the mutilated horse Snippy. It was actually Lady. It's the same case. I read that recently in Linda Moulton Howe's book. But they said in that case, there were no tracks within a 100-foot radius of the carcass that was found there. What they did find was some small holes in the ground, punched into the ground, and 2 bushes were completely flattened. Completely flattened.
Like pushed down, not...
Yeah, like a UFO had
down.
landed. But they were completely compressed and flattened.
No, well, that's what they do when they bring them back down. A lot of people think they just drop them. I mean, they bring them down and drop them off. I mean, if you look at the snow in that, I mean, half of them don't have broken bones, or more than half. So I mean, they ain't dropping them; they're just bringing them back down. But the whole thing is, again, we talk about aliens being demons and that, and you're saying about them taking the sexual testicles and that. When you get into demonology and that, into witchcraft, that is the most powerful thing there is in it. So that could be part of that too.
Yeah, I mean, other cultures will take body parts, like the rhino, they cut the horn off, which is so disgraceful what they do to those animals, because they think there's magical powers, or they'll eat the genitalia of a tiger because it's going to make you prowess like a tiger. It's the stupidest stuff, but this is all that falls into that occult area.
Yeah, and I can tell you too, coming across certain cattle mutilations, and what I've always been fascinated with was that if it was by aliens, then why would they put them back? Why not just keep them? Why not just dispose them somewhere else? Now, what I've heard of, what I've come across first is on some level, they know that the farmers, and I don't know if this is true or not, but they know that the farmers are going to lose money from insurances if they don't have proof that the cows died some way. So they, in somewhat of a respect, give it back so that the farmers can then say, hey, my cows died, I'm out of my money, but yeah.
But the other reason is, if you take the cow, okay, and you kill him, you drop him off a half a mile down the road, that's a criminal act.
Because it was transported?
No, but if the cow never left your yard, you can't prove how it was done. Where if you find him down there all cut up, somebody cut him up down there.
Just left him, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the major thing, I believe, because nobody will come in and investigate it. They can't investigate it as a criminal act because it occurred on your property. You don't know when. How'd the cow get killed? You don't. I don't know, but it was on your property.
But think about this too. We're trying to figure out who is doing this, right? But now go back to World War II. You had Joseph Mengele. He was doing the same type of experiments on humans. How long can you last if I put you in a freezer? How long can you? If I give you antifreeze, how long do you last before you die? He did, and people don't talk about that. I think it's Unit 731. No, with Japan.
Yeah, 731 or 713.
I think it's 731.
731.
The Japanese did the most horrendous experiments on the Chinese, and that's what China, they want an apology. Japan won't do it. So you have Germany and you have Japan doing these experiments, right? It's very similar to this. But then who got all the records on that?
We did.
We did. Well, doesn't that kind of make you think, is there a paramilitary, is there a group that's still experimenting to find something out?
We're just doing it over there.
And it's hidden, and it's hidden.
Well, you know, and the whole thing is, with both of them groups, we brought them all here, and we gave them amnesty and a whole 9 yards. We gave them more money to study whatever they were studying. I mean,
well, it was interesting how that went, because, you know, the Russians, Project Paperclip, right?
Yeah.
The Russians came in there was a rush into Berlin and Germany to get those scientists. We all knew about this. And Kammler, I think, came to the United States with all this evidence, and we knew we had to get there and get these people. They grabbed the top scientists Russia got. That's why they got in space first, the Sputnik and everything. But that guy died at 63, and they didn't have the others to keep it going, where we had Werner von Braun and all the others, and that formed NASA. And people are like, what do you mean NASA was formed by Nazi scientists? It was. That's who formed our rocket program, and everything was the German scientists, is the ones that they use. But
but also on that too, John, talking to our anonymous guest that was here one day, he brought up a good thing. None of the cows that are dead, that are killed, have been sickly. That's number one. Number two, he says, and it's possible too, that they were actually, may have had chips in them. And again, like you say, who's really doing it? Is it the government or is it the aliens? And this is why they're taking them.
Yeah.
Because they know they're getting ready to die or they're getting ready to be sold. So what they do, they take them and take everything out of them so they can't be controlled no how.
So they're tagged like we would tag an animal in the wild to see where it goes and everything.
And they
I
tag
actually
them
got something else on that what these ranchers said, what they discovered. And it might have been Daryl Sims. I'll find it in here somewhere, where there was fluorescence. They were marked with a fluorescent powder or something that you could only see under a black light. I think that was Daryl Sims who found that out, you know. But, you know, from my book, I put some interesting stuff in there. I say the first human mutilation was Jack the Ripper. But it wasn't Jack, it was them. If you follow what he did with those women, very similar to these cattle mutilations. So that could have been a different species of ET. Exactly what he did. They never got caught. It falls right in line. The same body parts, everything taken, you know. That's Jack the Ripper. The first animal mutilation in the U.S. was in Vernon, Kansas, April 1897. So get this. That's 1897 in the U.S., 1888 was in London, Whitechapel, right? And they said that in 1897, the cow was found dismembered the next day on the farm next to where it was taken. Then the most famous case was the 1967 one with Lady, the horse that was mutilated.
Well, that's what started the whole thing here.
But get this though, after, I just mentioned the FBI put out a memo in 75. In 76, they put another memo out, right? And the FBI states, and this is interesting, mutilations of cattle are only the forerunner of mutilations of human beings. So it's a progression. You know, it sounds like they're starting on, if what's going on with this cattle is going to lead to humans being taken and mutilated. But the question is, who? What's the source of it? Who's doing it?
Yeah, well, how did they come to that conclusion? No, that's the
thing. They know more than they say. They always do.
And, you know, also AT&F was investigating that too.
Who?
AT&F.
Oh, okay.
Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. Now, why would they be investigating cattle mutilation?
It makes no sense. There was no alcohol, tobacco, or firearms used.
But the FBI's reason, they said that there was critters that was killing them. It was, you know, that it wasn't UFOs. There was nothing.
But they know from the bites and stuff that that's not an animal bite. That's not what's doing it. How many cattle? Now think about it. You're a rancher out in Colorado, New Mexico, whatever. How many cattle do you think got lost in a 4-year period from 75 to 79? How many cattle you think was
I'd
taken?
say maybe 50,000.
No, that's kind of high.
No,
10,000.
no.
10,000.
10,000. What's it cost? $2,000 for a cow? At
Where'd you get
least.
them statistics at?
I looked them all up. Let's say it's $2,000 for a cow.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's reasonable. $2,000.
Yeah.
That's $20 million.
Gone.
Think about this. These ranchers are out $20 million on these mutilations. Now, the black helicopters were also seen, and they talked about the Gomez Ranch near Dulce. And this is all part of the Dulce, New Mexico lore. This one rancher, he lost 50 head of cattle. Think about losing 50 head of cattle. I mean, in the old Western days, you were stealing cattle, they hang you, right? They'd catch you and they'd hang you. Oh, this is where they said it was marked, the cattle were marked with potassium magnesium that could only be seen under a black light. So now the question is, these helicopters, are they built by the ETs and flown by ET pilots? Are they a branch of the military that who's our guy talked about that? The Night Stalkers, right? He said that it's a branch of the military, and they do this to appease ancient deities in exchange for some supernatural powers and stuff like that, and which goes all into that religion and the demonic stuff again. So you can't just separate, I don't think, the UFOs from the paranormal. I think they're very intertwined. Or do they need the genetic, here's something, they need the genetic material to reconstruct themselves. Like they're interdimensional. Like you think Star Trek, when they beam you in, they can't just beam you in unless they add genetic material to reconstruct you. I never thought of that one before. So they need the cattle, and they take that so they can reconstruct themselves in this dimension.
You mean the actual being, too?
The being can appear materialized.
Yeah, because there are cases that I've come across where it's almost as if these aliens are sometimes growing new bodies so that they can transfer consciousness in it, and whatever you need to grow these things. I don't know. Transfer your soul into another body, and these things have been living.
Keep going.
We recently had a case like that out in eastern PA. Not really eastern, it was close to eastern.
Yes.
Where the lady called in a report, and I called her up, and she said ETs are there to take her soul. They talk about taking her soul, and she said they actually come to take my soul. And I talked to her, and she said they want to talk to me, and I said I talked to them, they wouldn't talk to me. But she sent me some pictures that were ungodly, and then I never could get a hold of her again.
Well, a lot of people say that about the soul. Whitney Strieber, remember with Communion, and that's what really brought a lot of this out, the TV show and the book Communion?
Yes.
He absolutely concluded they were after his soul.
Right.
That's what they were after. We have a soul and they don't.
Right, so they're trying to get it now so they can be like us.
Yeah, and I've even read in certain places too that it's almost as if before you're into this body, you've made an agreement with them for them to take you later on at some point.
That's an agreement.
You know exactly how you're going to die, and you agree to it. And we don't know it now.
But you don't know it now, but it's...
And other people say you come to an agreement when you enter a body. You've actually picked your parents.
Right.
It's not like your parents had you. You picked. Okay, I want to go into this. I want to go into live like a millionaire. I want to live like a poor person. I want to live like You've picked that level of where you're going to experience life.
That's why they say. What is it? Sudden death infant syndrome.
Yeah.
A lot of the babies, when they get there and they find out what it is, they say, "The hell with this. This ain't what I wanted."
Or it's something taking them. That's why they die like that. The sudden
so they
death.
Went out of there.
How many people a year in the United States do you think disappear permanently and are never found? You see the milk cartons all.
I don't know, but it's a scary number. I can tell you that. So
the bulk of these people are runaways. And that's what's inflated this all. You get the whole divorce proceeding and stuff. You get the father. You're getting divorced. You take your kid and you stay one extra day. You keep the kid one extra. You got to bring him back Saturday night. You bring him back Sunday, and your former wife, calls the police on you.
Yeah.
So these cases completely got inflated by like 900% because of domestic stuff.
Yeah.
But there's 4,000 people a year in the United States that disappear, gone.
Right.
There's been over, I think, the last 25 years, 90,000 people in the United States gone. They're never found. They're not runaways. They're totally gone. You know, and we'll talk about David Paulides, right? We'll talk about that next. Linda Moulton Howe, she was one of the first that looked into this. She said that in 1983 she had a meeting at Kirkland Air Force Base. They showed her a document, and it was the history of retrievals, and that we captured an alien EBE. It was a reptilian-like, and it talked about this. And she claims it was an official document she was showed. Yeah.
What?
Well, you were going to say something. Were you going to talk about Paulides or anything with the missing?
Okay, you know, we got into this before with Butch. You know, when Butch came up with the abduction thing, he was saying that I don't know how many thousands of people were abducted every year. I mean, mutilated, okay? But Paulides comes up with, he goes to the federal parks, state parks, and other places, and he actually got it down pretty good now where he can actually almost pick where somebody's going to be abducted at. Now, how is it that you're walking with your kid up through a park, and you come around the berry bush? Berry's a very important part of this. Come around the berry bush, and you come and your kid's not there no more. It's gone.
Yeah.
Okay, but what's interesting, if they find the kid, they'll find a kid in a spot that the kid couldn't have got to by himself.
Right.
Number one.
Too small, like a 3-year-old can't hike 10 miles.
Yes.
And they'll find them out in the middle of a river on an island.
Yeah.
Secondly, their clothes will be folded perfectly. Okay? And then they'll say the bear took them. They speak of the bear. I mean, so
Bigfoot?
well, yeah, you know, Dave don't want to say that, but you know,
yeah,
he's
something
insinuating.
comforting for that
Yeah,
child
for
to
that
be.
child,
Oh,
right,
you know,
yeah.
all kids like bears, so I'm going to go to that bear. But then in reality,
Right,
it could be an alien. It could be whatever. It's a smoke screen.
And like, you know, the whole thing with people. I mean, where are they taking these people? What are they doing with them?
Yeah, and
That's the question.
Yeah, and if you're looking at abductions in general, I mean, most cases, if not like 99%, it's very with your lineage. If you were abducted, grandparents were abducted, all these people were abducted upon a line. So it seems to go that way. And that makes a lot of people think it's more genetic. It's more, you know, we're following people from, you know, 1,000 years ago and how they progress for whatever reason.
We get tagged like an animal, it seems like, and they keep coming back. It stays in the family for generations.
But you're talking, I'm talking about abductions where you're missing.
And stay missing?
You stay missing.
Yes.
I mean, so is the ET taking them? Is the government taking them? Who's taking them?
I think in the end, maybe a little bit of both, I would guess, you know,
I
for
would say
whatever
the same thing,
reasons.
yeah.
But
what is the reason, though?
Well,
Are they working with the ETs? What is, you know?
As the government, we have no idea what they do.
We don't know what they
all
do.
guesses,
You know,
yeah.
they're crazy as hell, the government. I mean, they do anything, you know what I mean?
You know, I took a real good look at this the last year. This is, when you look at what they do, it's like a ritualistic thing. Like, you know, the Mayans used to pull your heart out. You know, it's a ritualistic cattle mutilation. It's been going on for a long time, right? Now, so do you say now that these are explorers and ambassadors from space? Is that what we would do? If we showed up on Mars and there were animals, we would take 1 or 2, we definitely would. But 10,000 to do this on? This behavior to me, I think falls into this satanic, occult, ritualistic thing.
I agree.
And
I
there's
agree.
something that's very evil about this.
I agree to a point.
Now, whether it's demons or it's just a reptilian group that eats us.
Yeah, and who's not to even say that they're repopulizing, taking people, certain people with a genetic makeup, specifically taking them and then putting them somewhere else on some other planet to colonize.
Right.
Who's
Or
not to say that happened here?
Slaves.
Well, yeah, or slaves, yeah.
When you look at the history of this planet, what's the most predominant feature that's happened on every continent, every time period, every racial group? Is slavery.
They seen Bigfoot.
No, think about the Egyptians, right? The Romans, Spartacus.
Right.
You know, in more recent, you know, with the African Americans in the United States, but that's just the most recent. And we were the country that put an end to slavery in Western civilization. But that's what really took place.
But just think this
this
way,
is what's
too.
always happened.
Maybe they have some type of animals that they're feeding. And that's why they're actually taking the cattle.
I don't know.
It's like big thing with that is again, let me bring Bigfoot up for a second. You see Bigfoot carrying a pig, you see him carrying a deer, you never see Bigfoot carrying a cow.
Maybe it's too heavy.
Well, he doesn't like hamburgers.
Yeah, I never seen Bigfoot with a cow.
He wants lean meat.
I mean, you know, so maybe that's part of it. I don't know. I mean, you know, it's interesting because I think the government, whatever, they're mixed in at 100%. I think the government
through paramilitary, because you can't trace paramilitary.
Right.
Yeah, no.
They're not subject to Freedom of Information Act.
Right.
So, you know, like usual, we're not going to get in.
True.
We got the animal mutilations done.
Right.
But there's no time left to do human mutilations, although we touched on it. But we're going to talk about David Paulides. Maybe we can actually Skype him in and get him on the show.
Right.
And I think then we could talk about the MUFON procedures and how you handle, you know, these mutilations. Is there anything you want to add from handling some of these cases for MUFON regarding it?
I mean, just in the end, you know, I think a lot of people that go into MUFON or do investigations are probably people who have been policemen or things like that. My background, and have done investigations in their past, my background is more mental health. So when I do talk to people, I do try to comfort in some type of way that they aren't the only people that are going through this. This isn't, it's even though the experience is unusual, it's not unusual just for that person. And to try to, even though you've gone through a traumatic event, trying to work through it and living your life without becoming a victim of it. So
you can't have it define who you are.
yeah,
You know, so that's our show for this episode, and I thank you guys for being on.
thank you for bringing me.
Thanks.